enjoying that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser Podcast. We are back in action. I am your host, as always, Timuchin here in Chicago. With me is Gally, as always. Gally, what's happening?
Nothing. Just living the dream.
Living the dream is right. Living the international dream, if you will. And we don't have a Bickler here. We have Big Mac here, who ate Bickler. What's going on there, Mac? My normal morning partner.
He was tasty. I'll say that much for Bickler.
That's shocking.
First of all,
I would expect a little bit bitter.
Yeah. There'd be nothing tasty at all there. And let's be real here. He's off because he's mourning the fact that he has to deal with the international break.
Not anymore. He doesn't.
Oh, good old Bickler. Yes, we are missing Bickler, but we got Mecca over here who has abandoned me in the morning show. Those of you following, speaking of morning show, Alan is always with us in the mornings and always with the podcast as well. What's going on, Alan? Morning cup of coffee or tea, or in Mecca's case, it was gin or flavored gin and all kinds of different stuff. Every morning, 8 Central. We are here live, kind of covering the morning headlines, hosted by me. The good news is it's not always just me anymore, as I have different partners throughout the days. I had the Polish Prince this morning, who joins me on Mondays, and we're going to have a lot of new faces joining. And so tune in there, like, share, and all that kind of good stuff. And other programming notes, and actually, let's find out how many of you guys are into this. So FIFA 23 is coming out. I know Gally's excited as hell. It's coming out in almost a week. And we had our tourney. Last year's FIFA was kind of a mess because it wasn't like cross-platform and all that kind of stuff. This one is supposed to be, so it remains to be seen, but we're back with our league. We did post it, so just join our Discord channel and go and tell us where you play your FIFA, and we'll go from there. Gally, I know you are not a gamer. Will you join the FIFA League? I do fantasy for the sake of American Scouser. I expect the same sacrifice from you when it comes to FIFA.
Pretty sure I have to have a PlayStation or a Xbox. Is that correct to play in this league?
It is.
Well,
you're saying you don't have any of those.
Unless someone is donating that up to Massachusetts for me, I don't know. And honestly, me and you do enough arguing around the administrating of this damn thing. I don't know that we need any more conversations about how much better at something you are than me.
Well, actually, yeah, that doesn't even take a conversation as how good I am at FIFA. Ask Bickler. Bickler is not here. He actually does play FIFA at a limited level, but still he does go out there. Mecca, are you a gamer? Will you be joining us in the
I will definitely be joining as soon as they release it on Atari 2600.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. If you notice, sometimes I'll have my my old like pro soccer Nintendo t-shirt on that has all the little players from, like, that's the level of footy I was playing on video games. It was right when you had to have more than the 3 buttons that could go on the controller. That's when I realized, like, if you have to combine the up, the down, and a shift and a swing to make the step over happen, there's probably a Turkish guy that's going to be dropping F-bombs at you as you just go clear out his players and go automatic red card. Like, I'm back in like the Sega Genesis hockey game where you could just bloody people on the ice and take them off and that kind of thing. So I don't know that I could get into this level of gaming.
See, I'll be honest, when I do FIFA, I mean, yeah, there are some kids out there. I don't know how many fingers these goddamn kids have because they do all kinds of stuff that I cannot really pull, but I can really pass around and do all kinds of stuff. So BJ says, do they have it for the Commodore 64? And this, by the way, is showing the age of our audience, because I know there are a couple of young listeners asking what Atari is, Commodore 64 is, and all that kind of stuff. Jamie says Milner was quality on the Commodore. I don't remember a lot of Commodore 64 games. Was Emlyn Hughes Soccer? Whoever is listening right now, if you're
Emlyn Hughes Soccer was the best soccer game of all time. It was fantastic.
It was on the Commodore 64,
yes,
right?
Emlyn Hughes International Soccer, and on YouTube, if you're smart, you go listen to the theme tune because it was one of the best computer theme tunes of all time as well.
Really?
And the great thing was you could
We're gonna
change
have
all the
to bring
names
that.
and then score from the halfway line. So if you went 1-0 down, just shoot from the kickoff and you're in. It was great.
I always felt like I had the platform that was like one behind what everyone else had. Like someone would have like Super Nintendo and I was just getting Duck Hunt. Someone would be getting like that next level of video gaming. Like they'd be getting the brand new PlayStation. I was getting a Sega. It wasn't even a Genesis. It was just a Sega. But like, I don't even remember the name of this thing, but I had this thing when other kids were playing Atari, and every game came with like a plastic sleeve, and you had to slide the sleeve over your controller, and then it told you what buttons. So it was like change the buttons, and then eventually that would just crack and break. And then you just had to play the games completely blind and just slam buttons. But that just probably shows that most of the video gaming consoles ever purchased for me were purchased at a tag sale, which is the reason they came a generation or two behind, because my dad would just wait for the neighbor to buy like a new thing and then would buy me theirs. So like it would be something I'd been playing for months and then I'd get it given to me. It was like, what the? And they'd make me wait till like Christmas. They'd buy it in March.
Are you,
like, how does that
are you
shit
guys
work?
throwing it away? Because
by the way, I'm not bitter at all, by the way.
No, it doesn't sound like it. But I guess we will have to start a GoFundMe or something like that to get Gally, because nothing like I would love to see Gally angry, like quitting a game, like hating the game would would make my day to see, because I can see you lose, because I lose it a lot. Well, thanks to EA, but so yeah. Anyway, but that's gonna happen. If you want to see me or maybe Mecca or even Gally, if the GoFundMe works, get mad and use our fingers. Join us with the FIFA 23.
I will say this though, going back to what Gally said earlier, like I do actually play FIFA, but I'm only on FIFA 18 because I only play by myself, because I have no friends. And
this is a sad episode.
Yeah, this is the sad sack. This is the middle-aged man sad sack episode. But I am the one who goes in and plays when I do play against people, and breaks everybody up and gets 3 players red carded and then wins 2-0 in the end. People don't like playing me.
I'll be honest, ever since online game has started, I find it hard to play against artificial intelligence. I rather play and beat up on a 9-year-old, I guess. I don't know who the hell I'm playing online, but it is what it is. Bickler always says I play 9-year-old.
And I'm the jerk because I don't like kids begging for jerseys.
Hey, if you're going to get online, you're going to get the
And you get online and just smack kids around, face arm. You go like straight OJ in the airport on little kids, stiff arming them and stuff, yelling at them, probably telling them to go like get their parents' money and buy the new version or whatever. You're probably talking trash.
I talk shit to quitters only, or people who celebrate their goals and then bail on you when you're up like 3-1 afterwards. But yeah, it should be some good times. We had a blast with the FIFA 21 tournament, so it's back in action again. So talking about raising money and GoFundMe and stuff like that, you want to make money? Ask an American, right, Gally, how to make money. And Americans,
my word.
Ask an American how to make money, and they come up with some unique ideas. And here's one for you: the All-Star Game. I don't think we got a chance to talk about it on the podcast before. I know we talked it in the morning show a few times. I think we talked with you, right, Mecca? But I want to take Gally, the pure Americans aspect on this, because I think, no, like all joking aside, I think you're in a different situation where you're a lot more familiar with All-Star Games throughout. And then now it's in this sport, so you might be able to make a connection. Because I think when someone like me says, you got to be shitting me, All-Star Game, or somebody like from, somebody British says it's taken like that, almost like, too traditionalist and stuff like that. Whereas that's not really the reason why I don't want it. But I want to get your take on that. The All-Star Game, are you up for it?
No. So Todd Bowley, wrong plan, wrong idea.
Denied.
Now I'm gonna roll it back for 1 second. I'll get to my point quick. I promise. Where I'm rolling it back to is they need to get used to this. And what I mean by that is by the end of this calendar year, there is a chance that 3 more takeovers will happen in the Premier League by American consortiums. By the end of next season, I think it's 2 seasons from now, they said within 2 years, they expect 75% of the league will be controlled by United States money. And that is That's because that's where the money is, and these people want to make money. So, and there's a lot of good that can come out of that. So what will also come out of that is going to be some Americanized ideas and ways to speak to an American audience, because they're not investing this money into this venture because they want the toy, right? They're not a sheik with billions of dollars. These guys are businessmen trying to make more money. Like, that's what's made them rich, is changing with the times and making more money. So I do think there is going to be some Americanized items that creep into this game. All-star games should be banned here. Like, we shouldn't have all-star games in America. They're terrible. So that concept is just stupid. I don't want to hear about drafts. I don't want to hear, I don't want Todd Bowley taking victory laps telling everyone that Chelsea's academy is outstanding. It has Salah and KDB in it. And you're like, you fucking asshole. You actually didn't have either of them in your academy. You were just dumb enough to sell them. So, like, I'm all for shitting on Todd Bowley right now. And I've been all for ripping on FSG when they say and do stupid things, or the Glazers. The idea of an all-star game in a sport like football over in Europe is ludicrous. The amount of matches you play, the physicality, they're just never going to be able to do it. Do I understand why the MLS plays the Liga MX while they're trying to build this rivalry between the two brands? Yes, and it's a smart ploy. It was smart when they took their best players and played them against Real Madrid, played them against Chelsea on a international friendly. That's about growing the game here. The game doesn't need to be grown over there.
Yeah.
So zip the lip, like, spend your money, go buy some players. Chelsea's going to be good, people, and Todd Bowley will hire someone that runs that thing really well, because that's what he did with the Dodgers. I mean, they're going to make money. They're going to be good. But this idea that we need a all-star style football match in England is absolutely stupidity. That being said, there are a lot of stupid things they do over in England that we Americans can't take and attribute for. So, it's not just the American idea.
I think,
that's my point.
The biggest criticism for it has been timing, but I still feel like if there is money to be made, time will be found. So I don't think time is an issue. I just feel like, Mecca, that the game does not suit itself to an all-star. And I, when I was talking about it in the morning, I find it like American football. It's a game based a lot more on physicality, aggression, and, obviously you're playing against somebody else. So when you kind of take that away from the game, it becomes a joke, which is what the Pro Bowl is, for example. I think in a game like the NBA, for example, you dunk on me, I dunk on you, everybody's having fun, and then we'll play the last 5 minutes seriously. I think you can get away with that. But I think in, like, when you put out a game where you're watching it for that competition, the aggression, the physicality, and you kind of take that away, you got kind of like a joke of a game over there that is not going to be watched anyway. What do you think, Mecca?
I think that what they should do is they should have what I'm going to call the Harlem Globetrotters test for all-star games. If the Harlem Globetrotters could play 3 quarters with ladders and buckets of water and tripping up the referee, and then play a serious game quarter at the end, have a Pro Bowl or an all-star game by all accounts. But you can't do that in football and you can't do that in soccer, so let's not have it. But seriously, it just won't work in England. I've seen somebody on Twitter or Facebook mention they have, or actually it might have been Jamie in the Thursday podcast. That's who it was. They have a thing in England called the Soccer Aid. I'm sure we know about it, but the celebrity kind of game, and then we have the Legends games as well. And they're good fun to watch. They're not very well attended because nobody gives a crap. It's something you watch on television while you're sitting at home drinking your few beers on a bank holiday Monday. That's it. An all-star game, first of all, it's going to either have to replace or compete with the Charity Shield or the Community Shield, whatever they're calling it these days, which is a big deal to a lot of clubs in England. Leicester fans are at the time, because they hate Brendan Rodgers now, not that we're bashing him yet.
It's too early in the podcast.
It's coming. But they value the fact that they've won a Community Shield. Now you take that away and replace it with an All-Star game. Nobody's going to watch. They're just going to go out to the beach for the day. It'll be a complete failure, and it'll be a failure because of one man's cultural obsession with turning the greatest game on the planet, played all over the world, into something that Americans can like, despite the fact that NBC have shown Americans love soccer as is. Like, it's Correct. A fantastic product. I think from a European perspective, I think the NBC pre-match halftime analysis and post-match outstrips pretty much everything else that I've seen in Britain and Ireland at this point. I mean, they've really got it together. And that's the product that American soccer fans want. They want the American, I mean, they are British, more or less, commentators and stuff like that. But it's the package that we get back home, just done a lot better. We don't need a different package. Don't need it here, and they definitely won't accept it over there. So I think it's a non-runner. But it's a fear that us Europeans had, and especially fans of British football, even though we're Irish in my case, but that Americans will come into the game and start trying to change it. And I agree with Gally. I think you are going to see Americanizations. I think with the 5 subs happening now, I don't think it's a huge step to get rolling subs like they have over here for high school and college, and well, when they had it in college, which is going to be a disaster at professional soccer level. But you could see it creeping in. I think VAR is going to have commercials fairly soon, because now they're getting to the idea of how long things are going to take. They're going to slap in the commercial, like in Mexican soccer, when the screen cuts to the smaller screen and then you get the beer ads. We're going to start getting that during VAR, I bet. That would be another Americanization. That clock thing annoys the hell out of me. The clock going backwards and then stopping it when the ball's out of play, because we get that in high school. And you can't judge when a high school game is going to end. I mean, I've been late for so many club practices as a coach because my high school game went for 2 hours because the ref kept stopping the clock. And we're going to get that. But that's, again, those little Americanizations I could see, and I could see them being sort of accepted. But an all-star game, it'll die a death within 2 years.
You know, you mentioned that clock thing, because I remember my first college game over here, and I came here as like a junior, and I remember that at the end of the first half, I was like, "What the fuck was that?" Like, it was just like a horn blew, and the game was over. I'm like, "What the fuck was that?" But here's the thing: I don't even think it's like an English thing. Can't think of. Mexican soccer is a good example, actually, because I feel like, I mean, their players look like, you know, they're in like racing or something with like 85 logos on the jerseys and stuff. They really try to milk every dollar out of the sport. But I mean, I can't see it happening and being attractive to fans in any other country either. I can't think of it in Turkey. I can't think of it in Germany. I mean, not a lot of the countries. And honestly, Gally, I mean, that's why you come in over here as the American here. Is I don't even think, you know, it's popular here. Like, it's not something that's gonna. I mean, I love football, like American football. Let's go with that football, American football. But we were just talking about this with like Angie. We couldn't remember the last time we watched the Pro Bowl because it's a freaking joke. I follow the NBA. I can't remember the last time I watched the NBA All-Star game. And I can't watch regular baseball, leave alone All-Star baseball.
Right, so, you're not going to watch a baseball game. Now, I'll say this. This is where All-Star games came from. Like, the only All-Star game that ever mattered, ever, in this whole entire country, there's been like 2, was baseball's All-Star game for the first 50 years that it was in existence. And the reason was one, baseball wasn't on television. It was only regional baseball matches and one game of the week. American League never played the National League unless you made it to the World Series.
Oh, because you didn't have the...
So, like, this was an opportunity. Like, when I was a little kid in 1984, right, it was an opportunity to see Roger Clemens pitch against, like, a non-steroid Barry Bonds. Like, it was an opportunity to see things that weren't going to happen because the Boston Red Sox were never making it to the World Series. And neither were the Pittsburgh Pirates, or, you know, like, there were times where, like, there's these great moments of, like, Willie Mays batting against, like, you know, Seaver, and just great matchups that didn't happen. And in baseball, you told those stories. So it was about that one time. Once the games and the teams start playing each other, it just watered it down. Baseball is the only one that ever mattered in any way. Basketball,
then they had to change it right now. Like, the winner gets the home field and stuff. They have to throw something in there.
that's all in the last like 25 years because they had the game that went so many extra innings that it ended up being in a tie, and they had to have a reason because they didn't have any more players left, because that was the other problem. You let guys play for 2 innings and have one at bat, and then you'd yank them out, and they'd be, doing photo ops with their girlfriends and their wives, and maybe, one with the girlfriend, later with the wives, or vice versa. Leave it to a baseball player to be dumb enough to invite both their girlfriend and their wives to All-Star Weekend and then put them in the same fucking home, in the same hotel room. It's like, well, I got an adjoining room. I thought it would make it easier for myself. But the NBA All-Star game, it became an event because of the weekend, because of the 3-point contest, because of the dunk contest, because everybody wanted to party in the same city as, NBA, celebrities. All of the All-Star games are a joke. None of them are needed. It's no different than what Mako was talking about. Nobody watches these testimonial matches over there. Very few people, who goes to the Legends game? Who goes? The guy with his 3 kids who can't afford the ticket on match day. He brings his 3 kids. He gets them inside Anfield. They get their hot dog. They get their, their pie. He grabs a pint. And they leave with 25 minutes to go in the second half, so they make sure that they can.
This guy used to play when I was your age, coming to the games and stuff like that. And it's more like a nostalgic thing than anything else.
And then they say, yeah, and that guy, and that guy's now fatter than me. And look at him, roly-poly. See, I was once skinny too when I was a younger player. Look at this picture of this guy, son. And like everybody goes home, and you get home, and they can tell their mates that they brought them to Anfield, and they got their picture outside of the stadium, and it didn't cost them, 2/3 of their mortgage.
I have to say that fat player was also Neil Ruddock and Jan Mulby, still fat back in the day as well. So there's always exceptions to the rule.
Was and is. This is what I was.
Will always be. Will always be. So let's just say this. We take a lot of shtick on this show for being American. Sometimes we get it in the comments, right? What do these guys know talking about football? Why are they telling us anything, about the English game or previewing Aston Villa? Ultimately, at the end of the day, we have opinions like everyone else. And just because we're American doesn't mean we should be lumped up with all the other dumb Americans.
Trying to.
I'm basically separating myself from everyone that thinks that this is a good idea, and especially Todd Bowley.
I'm not that American.
I'll say this, though, because I think me and Tabuchin said this in one of the morning podcasts about American soccer fans. I've been here 17 years now, nearly 18 years, and the level and depth and quality of soccer knowledge has exponentially grown since 2005. For the casual, not the serious American soccer fan, the casual American soccer fan. And I noticed this, coaching young kids. I'd have their parents, their dads, come and talk to me about the game that's happening this Saturday, and it might be like Wolves against Bournemouth. And I'd be like, Why are you watching that? You don't support any of those, in my head. But he knew the game, and he would want to talk about, do you think Wolves will play this player? And I'd be like, who is that player? I don't even know who he is. Fair play to you for knowing. But the depth and quality of knowledge. So, I think it's good that you're getting that criticism as American soccer fans from that side of the world, because it means they're afraid.
It's a good point.
Learn more, and everybody knows Americans like to improve things that are already there.
And you made a great point earlier about NBC and their coverage. I was a supporter who was watching it on Fox Soccer, and when they left Fox Soccer, I was really bummed out. Not because I was like some huge Eric Winalda fan, though Warren Barton is hilarious on any broadcast he's on. But what I liked about Fox Soccer was they showed every match live throughout the week. And at that time, we weren't all living in our phones, so I could literally tell my friends, I am shutting off the internet. Don't tell me anything. I'm watching Liverpool versus Wolves at 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. And in my mind, it was like it was live. Now, NBC took that thing to a whole new level, from their graphics to their commentators to the analysts outside of Tim Howard. But to everything that they brought us, to these fan fests, they've really done an amazing job of ingratiating the American culture and defining it. I remember Rebecca Lowe doing shows talking about what promotion meant, and actually educating people, where Fox Soccer never did that. They assumed only the diehards were paying for that channel because it was like channel 855 and came in grainy like porn in the 80s. But you know, they were very much.
I haven't got that far in porn history yet. I'm still in the 70s.
That's the thing, though. See, he didn't have a console. He had to get like grainy porn and stuff. He's gone through a lot.
I used to have one of them remotes that you'd have to hit in tandem.
No.
So it would...
No, I'm still in black and white with the title cards that come up with the dialogue. Yes.
Scare me. You scare me. You scare me sometimes because I actually believe this shit.
You should, my friend. You should.
I think it's a great point that I do believe that the game is getting more knowledgeable here, but I also think we have more avenues to actually digest the game. We get to hear more. We can get radio here. We can watch matches from different leagues, not just, it's not just England anymore. Like it was just England even 10 years ago. Now, with an ESPN and a Paramount app, you can basically watch Germany. You can watch France. You can watch Portugal. You could basically watch everything.
Man, everybody's childhood porn struggles are coming across. Trevor,
I'm with you, dude.
Struggle was real.
I'm with you, brother.
Here's the thing. I mean, I think that's one thing that NBC has done a lot better, and I think that's what the sport needs still a lot more of in terms of like teaching the game during these broadcasts. Because I mean, I know when I first came to the US for college, I used to watch like football and a lot of Madden, and I know a lot of Americans were sick of Madden. Like they just did not like him because to them he always pointed out the obvious, like duh kind of stuff. But he taught me a lot of the game because I didn't know what the hell was going on. So some of those basics that were maybe duh. So that, promotion relegation thing you're saying, for example, Gally, might be duh to us. Like, who doesn't know this? But there are a lot of people who do not know that. And like I said, at the time, I didn't know much about football. So when Madden said something like that, and I was like, oh, shit, that's good to know, like register. And of course, in 10 years, I was like, okay, we know that, duh, kind of thing. I got into that mode. But yeah, I think the broadcasting has made a difference. So let me ask you guys this. Mecca, we'll start with you. And with no Liverpool game, obviously, we were going to scramble anyway, but I'm kind of liking this conversation. So let's keep going at it. If you took, as somebody who's been here, you said like what, 17 years?
16 years, yeah. 17, yeah, probably 17.
What is one thing that you came and saw in maybe American sports and you said, you know what, this will be cool back home? He's like, I got nothing. Really?
Honestly, I can't think of, not in the sports themselves. And I say that I like hand egg. I like American football as a sport. We watched it back home. I think I mentioned this before. 1984 Chicago Bears Super Bowl. The fridge and all that kind of stuff. We all stayed up because it was at 2 a.m., 12 midnight till like 4 a.m. that morning. And we all of my friends in school, 8 years old, coming into school with our eyes bulging because we tried to stay awake for the whole thing because it was an American thing. Made our mothers buy the cheapest, worst peanut butter you could find because we wanted peanut butter and jelly, thinking that jelly was Jello. That's a disgusting combination on a sandwich, by the way, if anybody's interested. But I can't see anything in. I've seen baseball games. I've seen them live. Horrific experience. 3 hours of watching people missing the ball. I can't see what the attraction is to that.
Whoa. Really? You guys watch cricket for days.
I'm Irish.
Not you.
Irish.
Not you, but we could get into hurling, and I've gone to live hurling matches, which are kind of fun to watch, but I don't know what the fuck is happening. But it's an entertaining.
It's sport. Organized violence.
I'm actually not defending baseball. I've been off that train, as Timuchin can attest to, for a decade plus.
Yes,
I'm with you. It's like watching paint dry. It was just part of my childhood. But like when people do that, like baseball, and I'm like, these guys in England play cricket for 3 days at a time. That's like baseball on steroids. Like that's too much baseball without
the helmet. It's not. It's like baseball on Quaaludes.
Yeah,
let's get it the right direction.
And so let me reverse it to you then, Gally. What was one thing that you basically, once you first got really into soccer, you were like, you know what, it can use a little bit of this? Or were you like the Chelsea owner, you know what, this game needs an all-star game?
No, I've never thought it needs an all-star game. I've never thought it needs commercials. But here's the thing. I don't want it to be Americanized because I didn't start watching the sport because I'm an American sports fan. I am one of these like people that I got into football because it wasn't American. Like I started watching because I wanted something new to follow. I've been an avid sports fan all my life, no matter what it was, right? I wanted to get into it. And when I started watching it, I was like, what is this? Like really watching it. It was like, what is this play this year to qualify for next year's playoffs? There's no playoffs in this year and next year matters. So I can buy players. I don't trade them. I did have to get my bearings, but once I understood it, it was the passion of something new that led me to get so into it that I'd want to be involved in something like this, that I'd start watching every single match and scheduling my days off and scheduling work meetings around when they're afternoon. Like this is how, like I was this way with the NFL for a long time. I was this way with the NBA. I watched these sports. I used to watch college basketball like constantly all year long and then play in the tournament and all this stuff. And I don't have time for any of that anymore because I follow Liverpool, the rest of England, the championship, all the rest of the European leagues. Then I start watching national teams. Hell, I'm so addicted to the sport. I watch the shitty American version of it because I want to be able to banter with people here and talk about how it needs to improve, but also challenge people that say it's garbage and can't have any legs of its own because it has improved a ton, as Maka was saying earlier. So for me, it wasn't about what it didn't have. It was everything that it had. And if you ask me the one thing it needs here, you know, there are sports in this country that need pro rel. It'll never happen because of the value of these sports franchises, the way it works here. So I'm not going to go there. But anytime I want to make this argument with the soccer hater, right, that I have very often in my life, I use the analogy of like, imagine if you were a baseball fan of the Yankees or the Red Sox and you had this up and coming star shortstop. And instead of that guy playing in the minor leagues and getting no better, you could loan that player to Kansas City to get major league experience, get ready, and their brain starts to work with it. What they can't wrap their head around is why having a floor would help. Like, why does there need to be competition at the bottom? Well, because they don't have drafts that give you the best player out of college because you do poorly the year before. And there has to be a cause and effect. And I think that's what we're missing in so many sports here. But that's never going to change. So for me, I think there's an acceptance. But the coverage and the money spent at the production of the sports in this country is the one thing that there are places in the world that could strongly benefit from. Because you sit down and watch a match in Serie A every single weekend. It is garbage. And it doesn't matter what company is producing it. The cameras are garbage. The distance from the pitch is garbage. You can tell the difference from watching a Premier League game that's going to air on Sky or NBC Sports and watching something from Germany on ESPN or something, because all these feeds are just coming from Spain, from England, from France, from Portugal. And for me, that would be the big difference. The production here is really, really good. And I think we should get some credit for that, like Maka did earlier. Other than that, people, there's not really anything. But at the same time, I don't want baseball games to last for 3 days. So keep cricket the way you have it.
To be fair to cricket, though, I never watched a game in my life. It's a colonial sport as far, even though soccer is as well. But at least we have our own version of that. But it's the only game that breaks for cake. And that's a good thing in my book.
I was going to say that has to be an aspect you like. That has to be an aspect.
It's actually a really good aspect right there. I mean if you're going to take a break
to anybody, you say, what we do is we try and hit these little posts down with this ball, and then a guy with gigantic shin guards tries to whack the ball away. Well, people stand really close because he's really crap at it. Well, why should I watch it? Well, we break for scones for a day and a half. I would watch that sport all day.
But to be fair, if they broke in American League, if they broke American baseball so those players could eat cake, those players would never come back out to play, and each of them would weigh 750 pounds.
Yeah, they already.
A baseball player gets fatter just thinking about it.
Do you know what I want to do? Here's the improvement to American football that I would make, okay? Because I went to a game. I went to see the Jets and the Packers. Packers beat them 34-0 at the Jet Stadium in 2010 or thereabouts.
Sounds right.
Sounds about right, yeah.
2011, I think it was. And Bolton were playing Liverpool on the same day. Joe Cole scored a last-minute goal. Roy Hodgson was the manager because I was trying to get them to switch the channel on to show the Liverpool game, but it was on Fox Soccer, and they weren't a Fox show or Fox club or something like that. So they literally wouldn't put the television channel on in the guest box because I got guest box tickets. But I didn't realize that American football players will just break for commercials. They'll set up and then it's commercial time. Somebody must alert them because they just start milling around talking to each other. And I thought somebody was injured. I was trying to find who was on the ground, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder and was like, no, there's commercials on TV. So they're just doing. So here's what I would like to do. I would like to combine Nathan's hot dog eating contest weekly with American football games. So when they break for those commercials, 2 minutes, how many hot dogs can you eat? There you go. For the people in the stadium, that's how you make that sport better.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Trent Brown, who's a 450-pound tackle for the Patriots, was in that Nathan's hot dog eating contest, I'm pretty sure he would finish all the hot dogs during the 2 minutes and probably eat the opposing team's kicker at the same time.
I was going to say, yeah, eat one of the other opponents.
We could combine that. We could have the kicker kick the hot dogs into his mouth.
You're really now, hey, now we're bordering on fucking asking for all-star games in Europe, okay?
Yeah,
all right, keep your Irish goddamn opinions.
Yeah, exactly. Let's tone it down. Just leave it to Mecca to bring food into sporting events. I'm amazed we didn't get the potatoes yet. That's probably next, but
we got the cake.
Yeah, we got the cake. Yeah. Trevor says, and I mean, that's the thing. The no consequences for failure is the biggest problem with American sports infrastructure, in my opinion. And I agree. And I think you're right, Gally. That's something that's never going to change. It's the way it's built. And anytime I've explained the system to an American who's basically, maybe finds like the promotion relegation thing a little confusing, they kind of like really like the concept. Because everybody at one point has been fan of the team where their team was in the rebuilding mode, if you will, and they were like basically tanking on purpose. And I think pretty much everyone has been in that case where you're like, oh, my football team is gonna suck for 4 seasons, kind of a deal. So I think people like that no team will be able to do that. But unfortunately, the way it's structured over here, money-wise, city-wise, infrastructure-wise, sadly, I just do not see that changing unless maybe they come up with like different incentives or something like that, so people do not tank. But
I always think it's funny. Like I heard a lot when I moved over. As I said, like 2005 to about 2008. I'd say a lot of people were still ignorant about soccer. Like American, sports fans, casual sports fans, couldn't get soccer. But I always laughed at the idea that soccer was the communist sport, take your commie sport out of our country kind of nonsense. Heard that quite a lot. Because American sports are communistic. It's essentially, there's a safety net for everybody. It's centrally controlled. Wages are bargained collectively. And you have a salary cap of what you can earn. And the government controls the entire thing, and the worst performer, as he said, gets the best advantage in the end. Where soccer is purely capitalistic. You can't do the job. Guess what? Bye-bye, you're into the next league. Can't do the job there? Guess what? Bye-bye, you're into the next league. You can't pay your wages? Guess what? Bankrupt. Tough luck. Do you know what I mean? I think it's the great thing about American sports.
Honestly, makes the season a lot more interesting in any freaking league. I mean, that whole system by itself. Because just imagine. You look at the standings now. Look at it in 10 weeks. If there wasn't that relegation concept, it would be miserable because you would just have that top 6, 8, and you could just forget about the rest. Yeah. Which is why I think, American sports obviously introduces the playoffs and stuff like that. So even the 14th guy can still have a shot at it and stuff. And, some of the sports I know, like hockey and stuff like that, I know how bad baseball is, but, almost everybody somehow makes it to the playoffs except the really bad ones kind of thing. I know, especially in hockey. But yeah, unfortunately, those are things that's not going to change. But I think overall, how soccer is viewed And I think Mecca, like you're right in terms of how much more knowledgeable people are at. I think it's gaining more respect as a sport overall, whereas it was just everybody's starter sport in the past.
It's why it's important that the sport continue to be seen by neutrals. And Maka made that point earlier. It's not just the avid, crazy, diehard fans that are willing to do podcasts on Monday nights and Discord all day long with their buddies and get up at 9 and, cancel work appointments so they can fill in for Maka because he's got to go be some holy roller and recording TV in the daytime.
The wafer doesn't film itself, Gally.
No, it doesn't. Trust me. Payroll doesn't sell itself either. But I think sometimes where that looks at is that, the big like arrogant ego type piece. I don't think that's it. I think it is the neutral. The neutral is what pushes things on in the masses, right? Anywhere. Yeah. And I think that's why you need compelling stories. And we talk about it all the time, when teams are good, whether it was the women starting to win World Cups and then galvanizing groups of people, fathers, daughters going to watch them play, getting national media. The fact that there was as much coverage around the women's team getting the right to get the equal pay with the men and the equal earning, like the fact that there was as much coverage and more that there was actual outcry from people that it should be that way. Because let's be honest, there are no other sports in this country where the women make as much as the men.
Yeah.
Not tennis, not any other sport. Yet people recognized, well, wait a second. These women win stuff at the world level. They should probably get more, but we know we're not going to pay them more. But God damn it, they should be equal. And I think that's why it is important that, kind of a good segue here, when you're in these international windows and you're in a World Cup year, it is important that at some point they start to figure this out, which is what disappoints me, because I actually believe in my lifetime this is the best crop of American actual talent. And I think they have an absolute train wreck of a manager who doesn't know how to utilize it. It's almost like when they hired Klinsmann, they hired him a decade too early. Because if Klinsmann had gotten this group of players all getting bred in at young levels, Adams, McKennie, and I'll leave Pulisic even out of it because I actually believe like Tyler Adams, McKennie, Aronson, even the kid at Fulham, the young kid Robinson. I think the keeper at Arsenal is actually a really good keeper in Turner, and I think it'll be good for him to be the starter. Like, they're building, and they actually have a little bit of a spine. They find a striker who can score some goals. I actually think, and there's another wave. People don't realize it. There's a whole nother wave of 17 to 18-year-olds that are even better than this generation. But that doesn't mean anything if you don't get the structure behind it. Because all it would take is one deep World Cup run. And I mean a real run where those matches are on TV in prime time. It isn't going to happen in Qatar. Well, let me tell you, there's no better opportunity for America to introduce themselves to the world than to play England at 2:30 in the afternoon Eastern time the day after Thanksgiving and beat their ass in the World Cup. That's the way you do it, though. If you want to do it, that's how you do it.
I think that's what it needs, for the American soccer to get there, to get attention. It needs some kind of a success because, let's face it, a lot of neutrals or people who are on the outside watching and follow the success and kind of ride the wave. And that's what you're after.
Yeah, it's the hockey did the same thing in the 80s. It's these moments that put you at their level. It makes Americans start to say, I should pay attention to this soccer program because we're getting closer to competing. I hate to say it. We like to win things. Look at how ingrained we thought we were in winning gold medals in the NBA. Those guys go over to Greece. They get the bronze medal. And literally NBA players who didn't give a shit or try for 2 weeks are thumbing their nose and don't even want to accept the bronze. And Allen Iverson is crying because the guy had been turned down twice on dream teams he should have made because they didn't like him. And he finally got a chance to represent his country. And he was proud of winning a bronze medal because to him, he got to go to the Olympics and it was a big deal. Yet these, self-driven Americans, both the players and the fans of it, felt it was just their God-given right. And the world caught up. And I think that's what has to happen on the other side with soccer. We need to kind of have a shock.
I think that's just not an American thing, though. That's like with any, I mean, I think any country or any sport that needs to kind of get going. I mean, it's always the same way. I mean, heck, as a kid, I would, you would get up for like freaking like an Olympics 4 in the freaking morning and watch weightlifting because we had Naeem Suleimanoglu who could lift the freaking world. The dude was like 4 foot tall, but he could lift anything and everything. So, I mean, and like, I think because everybody likes winning, Mecca, and I think that's what it will kind of take. Because right now, I mean, you've done a lot of coaching in this country. I think it's a lot of, while people appreciate the sport, I think, and more what it takes to be able to play it and be good at it and all that kind of stuff, I think it's gaining more and more respect. For it to kind of like take that next level, it feels like it needs a push, and that's probably a success in an international level, or at least maybe because their players, American players, are showing up more and more on different good top teams. But unless one of them becomes like a Mo or Mane or something like that, like I think that's what the hope with Pulisic was. Like when he went to Chelsea, for example, that did not really happen. I think it's just winning or the World Cup or something like that, right? That's gonna kind of make them take the next step.
I don't think America necessarily needs to win the World Cup. I think
that's correct. Just compete.
Just get a good one, because I think at this maybe in 2005 they would have had to have won the World Cup to get people interested, because if they got to the semi-final or the final and didn't win it, they'd be like, bunch of losers, I'm going back to the 49ers now. But
true.
Why anybody would do that, I don't know. Even though I know the 49ers are crap.
Hey, I'm a 49ers fan. I know you did that on purpose, jerk. Keep going.
But what I would say is, at this point in time, and kind of to wrap it all in towards what we were talking about earlier with NBC, and then like what happens now is, as you said, American young players, not veterans, not what was his name, Brad Friedel, at 40 going to Spurs or something like that. These are young kids that are starting at Leeds, exciting young teams.
Yeah.
These are young kids, not even like it always, I talked about this with somebody, I can't remember who, about the quarterback in football, why the quarterback is so special when it's the wide receiver or the runner who usually takes the hit catching the ball. That seems to be the infinitely more dangerous thing to do and should get more glory. But it's that American concept almost of the, like in baseball, the batter against the pitcher. It's they're the only people you care about in that moment. And America, I think that formerly the soccer culture has been about looking for that one, looking for Neo, looking for the new Pele, or the American Pele rather. But it doesn't have to be that. An American team, like I only know the dream, the miracle team from the Kurt Russell Disney movie. That's pretty much all I would ever have known about, because we don't care about hockey in Ireland. It's we don't get snow, so why would we? And it never gets cold for ice. But the whole concept of that movie, the hook and the angle, seems to be that team threw off the shackles of their individualism and became a collective group that fought for each other and played for each other. And that's what caused them and helped them to be the Russians, which was the ultimate collective team, really, at the time, it seems to have been. Mm-hmm. So I think American soccer now, there are all these, they're not like outstanding athletes, like say the era of Tony Meola and all that. They probably were the outstanding college athletes at the time when Bob Gansler had them in the 1990 World Cup. Was it 1990 World Cup?
I think it's 90.
And like, look, I've met Bob Gansler. I've done coaching courses with him, and he always explained that he just wanted a young American team that the American viewers could fall in love with. It didn't work out that way because they weren't actually that talented as a team. They were just very good athletes. And American soccer seems to look for that athlete, the three-sport athlete, as the high school athletic directors always say, the one that's like tall, rangy, strong, fast, and all the things you need for baseball, football, basketball, but are completely useless in soccer if you can't control the ball at your feet.
Yeah.
These young American players are fantastic to watch. They're exciting players. You don't even say they're good for American players. They're just good players. Yeah. They're good players. And a team of those players with zero egos, and even Pulisic, because he would have the right to be the one with the biggest ego, he just wants to get on the field and play and combine with his mates and do this, that, and the other. a team like that gets to the semi-final and heroically loses to, say, Germany 1-0, last minute goal off somebody's backside from the German team after giving it their all, would do infinite amounts for the growth of the game, just as much as if they win the World Cup. I think it just needs that deep run. A couple of I hate to say it, but a couple of camera-friendly kind of American kids that they can, like, the teeny boppers can fall in love with and all that, and the American
not someone say, like us. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, don't worry. They'll figure that out. They figure that out no matter what. These kids nowadays, they'll figure out how to market anything. This is America.
Yeah, so but that culture, like, that egoless collective game will do infinite amounts. However, if they lose 3 games and they're out, untold damage, I think.
And I think that's what's happened with them not qualifying for the World Cup. I think that was like a huge thing that sadly something huge like setback. That can put a sport back, like 5 years, 10 years, or something like that, compared to, like you're saying, Gally, like the women's team winning, where it's kind of speeds it up a few decades and stuff. But let's see what happens. I know Gally can go hours and hours on the coaching of the national team. So let's not get his blood pressure going. One thing I wanted to talk about, I mean, obviously with the boys being off today, and I didn't want to go too much into that. I'm sure we'll do some previews. I mean, maybe we'll kind of like recap the first 7 weeks next Monday's podcast when we head over to games. But one thing I want to talk about was, like, there was a Liverpool team playing this weekend and the LFC women played, and a huge win for them, Gally, where they're welcome because they were 1-0 down when I was watching. But then I had to do like a live watch along, so I couldn't watch the second half, and boom, they make a comeback. So they're welcome. But it's a huge win against Chelsea, a title winner. And obviously, I think, especially to the casual fan who's finally like starting to watch LFC women, and we're going to be doing a lot of coverage for them on American Scouser here. We have Lee actually, who was at the game, so we should have some photos from him directly from the game tomorrow as well. It's going to be a different situation compared to the men's team, Gally, because this is a team that just got promoted, so it's going to have some growing pains. So that's what makes this win actually even bigger than, just like a normal regular league win.
Yeah, I mean, for Liverpool to secure promotion last year, and I can firsthand, I know I've mentioned on this podcast, I was over there for the last match of the year. So I was there right after they had won promotion. The excitement in the city about the women's side was real and palpable. It's not just something that people are doing because of PC reasons or, in this moment of time that we're in where the women need to get as much pub. The women's game is growing over there. I mean, we could watch it on Paramount Plus here. Last year, you had to watch highlights. Now you can watch full matches. That's outstanding. And that means that it's not just picking to our point earlier, right? The American audience is gravitating to watch more soccer and more football. And the fact they're putting the Women's Super League on is showing us that, once again, it makes sense because there's some American women that get to play over there in this league. And we send our exports and therefore we watch. So I just think it's great for the women's game as a whole. Liverpool specific, this is amazing. This is literally like Bournemouth going into City or hosting City on opening day and getting a win. I think Norwich did it 2 years ago. They came up and beat the champs. I think it was City. They beat them on the opening day, or someone did it. And it was like a huge deal. And we made this enormous front page kind of story about it. And I don't see all that love happening over there for this, but I think the way about that they did it is even more important. The fact that they went down to a penalty within 3 minutes, still were able to galvanize the side. Coach Beard clearly has a good plan in place. It's too bad it wasn't at Anfield. I know they only play a couple matches a year there. Looked like, I think the highlights were it was at Tranmere where they play a lot of their matches. There weren't enough supporters in the crowd, so I hope that more supporters get out there. I know it was a tough weekend with everything going on in England with the services and all the news that was going on. But for me, Katie Stengel, once again, just showing that she's the class of the side. The way she slots in the penalty was great. I love that she was able to get yanked off in extra time to kind of get serenaded off by the supporters. But what a big signing that was to bring her back and get her in last year. What a great player she's been. And 3 points, you beat the team that won it, and arguably is one of, I think, the 3 or 4 highest ranked teams in all of Europe. That's got to give you some confidence when you go out there and you got to play a lot of the other big clubs. But it's going to be a tough haul. I mean, the number one thing they need to do is secure their status in the league, in my opinion.
And I mean, Mecca, it's sadly was a part of the club that was ignored. So they do get relegated, which maybe they might not have with COVID and stuff. Obviously, season ending early kind of caused that. Well, they have not stated, but either way, it was not given the attention and maybe the financing and stuff like that it was getting. And I know it does not get, the women's soccer is not as popular as over there as it is over here. But it is like Gally is saying, it's something growing. I mean, it was a great story for them to come back up, right back up, bouncing back into the WSL. I mean, how important is it, do you think, for them to kind of like build up on that? Because we've seen it where the teams that come up, we were actually just talking about in the Premier League show when we were recording with Gally, sometimes you get that team that just came to, like we saw with like Nottingham Forest this season, when like their first game home, the excitement and that rush gets you a good score. How important is it? I think it's probably more about survival this year than really going out and winning it. The expectations have to be a bit more toned down, right?
Yeah, but just kind of this is a flip conversation to the one we just had about soccer grown in America and women's soccer grown in England. It's really funny how it works out like completely differently.
Good point.
But yes, I think I wouldn't agree with the analogy of Liverpool women being a Bournemouth beaten coming up and beating because they've won the league before, so it's almost like Leeds coming back up. After,
that's not real.
You know, a sort of
that's a good point.
Another era. We are former champions. I actually know somebody who played for Matt Beard when he was the coach at Boston Breakers, I think. He's a very good coach. That's the one thing I can say. His reputation is huge for a reason. So it's not a surprise that, you know, he's gelling that team together as he is, because he's not just like the best coaches, I think we all know. Not to bash Brendan Rodgers. But this is a serious point though. That like in terms of coaching, I'm bringing this back to Matt Beard, but in terms of coaching, I don't think Brendan Rodgers has much to have to defend. He's clearly a very good coach, even if his methods don't last a long time. He's like every other Mourinho coach and tree coach, 2 years, and then it starts going downhill. But from Mourinho to Villas-Boas to Rodgers to Steve Clark, even there's definitely a period where their methods like end. But he's clearly a very good coach. What he doesn't seem to be very good at is dealing with players. Klopp, on the other hand, I would say Klopp is probably the worst coach out of our entire coaching staff. Easily. If you took Pep Linders, if you took even Buvac before him, I think Klopp would hold his hands up and say those guys can run a session better than I can. But he connects with players like there's no tomorrow. Every player loves him, even if they don't like him, if that makes any sense. I'm not playing, but I still love you. Do you know what I mean? Matt Beard has that with his players, and it's very rare, I think, in my experience, for a male coach to have that bond with female players where there's respect. There's no you hear, you don't like to say it, but you hear so many stories of male coaches getting involved in the women's game, and then there's rumors and stories about things, you know, like inappropriate comments or inappropriate relationships in the context of the team. He's straight down the line and above board as far as I know. He gets in there and he coaches, he connects with the players, and he helps them to get where they want to go, which is the modern coach in a nutshell. So I think it's fantastic for Liverpool that we're up there. I think you're perfectly correct. We need to consolidate. We need to consolidate also to show the club that it's worth putting money into. Because if I was the coach or if I was a player, I'd go to FSG and say, why are Chelsea throwing so much money at their women's team? Why are City throwing so much money at their women's team? There must be something there. So, you know, get on board, give us the money, and let us see what we can do so that we're up in that conversation in the women's game. Because the Champions League is becoming way, way more popular than it was a few years ago for the women. Like it's great. I'm a huge fan of the French national women's team. I love the defender for the Wendy. I can never say her name right. Reynard. I can never say her name.
You know who you're talking about?
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, Renard. She's fantastic. She's like the Van Dijk of the women's game. She just controls everything around her, like it's second nature to her. But watching those players in the Champions League, and comparing it to the 90s when I started watching women's soccer on the BBC, when they started showing the Women's FA Cup, it's a world apart. It's like 1897 soccer to 1970 Brazil in a difference in a shorter space of time. So I think the club, number one, the club needs to get behind the women's team properly. It needs to give them a ground they can play at, because using Tranmere's ground, it might fulfill the capacity demands, but it's Tranmere's ground. We're one of the richest clubs in the world. Give them somewhere to play that's theirs.
Even home, if you will. Yeah.
Or, they're home, so they can feel connected to the club, because then we'll keep the better players if they feel connected, if they feel the club wants them there, and not just, that's a little sideshow for the real deal, the women's team. They're not even as important as the under 8s. That's what they probably would have felt like when they got relegated. Yeah. So give them the money. Give Matt Beard whatever length of contract he wants, because he does a fantastic job. He's won the league with us before. And then give them the players he wants, because we would be Champions League champions with him, I believe.
Yeah, I think they have, though. I mean, investment-wise, I think they have added money in, because I think they were challenged. And I think their challenge to the girls was secure promotion and we'll get more transfers. And they did buy players this season. They did give Beard the new contract. They brought him back. So, I think this isn't that far off. If you really think, like, even FSG in some ways, they were spending money but weren't spending big money. The only reason we spent as much as we did for Rodgers was because we sold Suarez at such a profit. There was a period there where FSG was almost saying to Rodgers and to the Liverpool players, like, hey, you got to get back in the Champions League, and then you got to prove that you're going to be there consistently before we buy a Mane and then a Van Dijk and then an Allison and then a Keita, and now we're, smashing transfer records for Nunez and hopefully for Bellingham. I do think it is a little bit of the proof is in the pudding. At the same time, it's put up time now. They've secured their promotion. They're showing that they can compete. You need to then strengthen in the next transfer window. You need to support them. And to your point, Maka, you need to give them a better training facility. You need to give them better compensation packages. You need to put them on the level. We're never going to be at the spending level of Chelsea and City from a budget standpoint, but we shouldn't be spending less than Villa is on their women's side.
I think so.
And that's where I will agree. We have to show a commitment to the competition more than anything.
I think, and they made those changes, and I think it's going to be like interesting to see how that starts paying off. And it's like an awesome start. It's a dream start to the season, really, because I know when I saw the fixture, in terms of when the fixture came out and like see who they were playing, I was like, ugh, not the best way to start with a tough game like that. But maybe in some ways it was the best way to start, because to use that energy against a team like Chelsea, who, it's always the title winner comes out a bit more, subdued than the team that always just got up to the league. So it was definitely exciting to win. And I'm definitely excited to have like some even better coverage than we did in the past on it, because I really feel like even in coverage wise and media wise, it does get kind of like ignored and it's kind of like an afterthought in most cases. So I'm hoping it will get more. So a couple more reminders right here before we let you guys go. The LFC woman is the biggest one, because like I say, we have our own guy, Lee, right at the games, not even at the game, just watching, but by the sideline, taking photos and talking to players and everything like that. So pretty excited to have more of that every freaking morning. Now with no maca, but no gin, cup of coffee or tea with different hosts. Join us every morning as we look at the headlines, and buy Galley consoles and head over to our Discord channel to join our FIFA 23 league. Game should be coming out, I think, in 10 days or so. Well, gentlemen, thanks a lot. Mecca, thanks for filling in Bickler's chair, which you did.
Right, he filled me in.
Yeah, thanks for
that was a delicious dinner of cannibalism.
And thanks to all listening, sharing. Give us a share, a like, goes a long way. We always appreciate the support. See you guys next Monday.